Week 8 is in the books, so that means it's time to hit those waiver wires to find players that could add value to the back end of your rosters. And first and foremost, I want to highlight a couple of players that are already highly rostered, but not exactly 100% that I think need to be, and that includes Tyler Shuck, quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, Kamani Vidal, running back for the LA Chargers, Tank Bigsby and Will Shipley, running backs for the Philadelphia Eagles, Isaiah Davis, running back for the New York Jets, Emmanuel Wilson, running back for the Green Bay Packers, Tez Johnson, wide receiver for the Buccaneers, Kymir DK, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, and Darius Slayton, wide receiver for the New York Giants. Again, all these guys are rostered in well over 90% of Dynasty leagues out there, but not exactly 100%. So double check your waiver wires and immediately add these guys if they are available. Well, I hate to start the video off like this, but I kind of have to because it was the biggest injury on the week for fantasy football. Cam Scadaboo's season is done after a gruesome dislocated ankle injury that he will have surgery on and will probably also disrupt his 2026 season as well, a la Chris Godwin from last year into this year. Tyrone Tracy is, of course, the primary RB1 for the Giants again and rostered in every league out there, but the new handcuff in New York becomes Devin Singletary, who's pretty widely available in most Dynasty leagues right now. In 4 games last year as the starter from weeks 1 through 4 before Tracy took over, Singletary was the PPR RB24, averaging almost 12 PPR points per game. For reference, that is the same average as Breece Hall and David Montgomery coming into this week. It was just behind J.K. Dobbins, and it is 2 or more fantasy points per game than Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, Kenneth Walker, and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Should anything happen to Tracy, as we have already seen this year, him getting hurt, Singletary is a good enough running back with a solid history of production on multiple teams, including the New York Giants already, who would then get a strong workload in a decent offense now under Jackson Dart. For how available he is, he should be a big Dynasty waiver add this week in every single league. Now, in a kind of similar situation to Singletary in terms of the possible next man up, is Samaje Perine in Cincinnati behind Chase Brown. Perine is actually rostered in fewer leagues than Singletary right now, for the primary reason being that we believe Taj Brooks is the handcuff to Chase Brown, not Samaje Perine. And while that could be entirely true if Brown were to get hurt, Perine is the one actually playing and producing next to Brown while he's healthy, and is producing relatively well too. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry in an offense that Brown is averaging under 4 yards per carry. He has seen 6 or more carries in each of the past 3 games and can be used as a receiver out of the backfield as well. And of course, the main reason that I chose this week to highlight Perine is because of his performance against the Jets, totaling 100 total yards on 10 touches and also finding the end zone on a 32-yard run. Like I said though, the Dynasty community believes that Taj Brooks is the handcuff to Chase Brown, considering that Brooks' rostership percentage is actually above 95% compared to Perine at 56%, and that could be 100% accurate if Chase Brown were to get hurt, that Taj Brooks is actually the guy. We've already seen multiple times this year that sometimes the better handcuff to roster and play for fantasy is the guy who's not already involved when the starter is healthy. It's Kamani Vidal versus Hassan Haskins, Bam Knight versus Michael Carter, even Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt versus Chris Rodriguez to a degree. But I'm also not certain enough that Brooks would actually be the guy to then have this major discrepancy in rostership between him and Perine, especially considering Perine's history as a good handcuff behind Joe Mixon under this same Bengals coaching staff and Zach Taylor, plus Perine's current production next to Chase Brown in the same offense that Brown has struggled in all year that Perine really hasn't on a per-touch basis. And if Perine would become the guy if Brown were to get hurt, in this improved Bengals offense under Joe Flacco and their top 5 strength of schedule for running backs the rest of season, you cannot allow that potential to be sitting on waivers right now as we head into the second half of the fantasy season and the fantasy playoffs just a few weeks away. The last running back I'll mention this week is Bam Knight as a reiteration from last week. The Cardinals were on bye this week, but they do draw the Dallas Cowboys in week 9, who just got obliterated by J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey on Sunday, just like most running backs do against them. Trey Benson is not eligible to return until week 10 because of the bye week, so this is the final guaranteed week for the Cardinals backfield without Trey Benson. Bam Knight has become the workhorse back for the Cardinals over Michael Carter in their last 2 games, seeing 12 and 17 touches in each of the last 2 games and scoring a touchdown in weeks 5 and 6. He is still available in just over 15% of Dynasty leagues that I'm pulling from on MFL, so if he's still available in your league, you have a potential plug-and-play guy off of waivers this next week. Now, at wide receiver this week is a player kind of similar to Bam Knight in that he is still available in almost 15% 50% of leagues despite having a starting role and producing in that role. It is Parker Washington for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's nothing special and is more of a desperation play in your lineup than anything, but he has seen double-digit targets in 2 out of 7 games this year and has either eclipsed 70 yards or scored a touchdown in 2 other games. So he's a solid add just from what he's doing already, but then there are now these trade rumors of Brian Thomas Jr. being on the block, which doesn't really make sense to me and I don't think actually happens, but the NFL is weird, and if BTJ were to get moved, Washington would presumably be the wide receiver 2 for Jacksonville, assuming that Jacksonville doesn't trade for a wide receiver back, which may not mean that Washington is a wide receiver 2 for fantasy all of a sudden, but it might make him a bit more consistent and a more interesting flex option on a weekly basis. Like I said, though, I don't think anything happens, but this is the week to add Washington if he is still available in your league, just in case something were to happen before the deadline. Lastly, at the tight end position, I wanted to highlight Ben Sinnott from the Washington Commanders, not because of anything that he's done recently or in his career really at all, but I have recently been asked more if Sinnott can be cut in Dynasty because he hasn't done anything, and I do not believe that Sinnott should be cut right now. I personally believe he is way too talented to not be rostered in Dynasty, and all he needs is an opportunity as a starter. He's just stuck behind Zach Ertz right now. And I know it is so easy to draw the line between Sinnott and Trey McBride and Dallas Goedert as other tight ends held back by Zach Ertz early in their careers before then breaking out once Ertz was out of the picture, but that really is a strong possibility here with Ben Sinnott. If you're watching this video right now, I'm assuming that you are a fan of the YouTube channel and you know about my marker system for prospects, which is essentially my quote-unquote model for predicting NFL success for incoming rookies. Fans of this channel also know that my marker system had Oronde Gadsden as the pre-draft tight end 1 in this class and the post-draft tight end 4 after draft capital adjustments, and he was a major sleeper candidate that I advised as much as possible to draft either late in drafts or add on waivers if he went undrafted, and that kind of feels like a major win already. Well, my marker system also graded Ben Sinnott as the 2024 rookie tight end 1 over Brock Bowers. It's primarily just because Brock Bowers didn't test. He was the tight end 1 in the class. I am dumb, but I'm not that dumb. And the rookie tight end 2 post-draft was Ben Sinnott after draft capital adjustments because Brock Bowers went in the first, Sinnott went in the second. Sinnott then joined a list of 20 past tight ends with 12 or more post-draft markers hit, a list that includes Dallas Goedert, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, Vernon Davis, Heath Miller, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, TJ Hawkinson, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, and Brock Bowers in the same class. There are definitely misses on that list, guys like Hunter Long and Jace Amaro and Gerald Everett, but there are way more hits with his prospect profile than there are misses, and a lot of those hits hit really big. Now, maybe he is a bust, or maybe he literally is Trey McBride 2.0. That is quite literally his entire range of outcomes still today, halfway through year 2. It is just too early to call his career a bust and drop him in dynasty leagues, so if you've debated cutting him, don't. And if he was cut in your league, add him immediately because he is available in over 10% of the MFL leagues that I am pulling from right now. So don't cut him, add him if he's available, or possibly trade for him on the super cheap as a throw-in your next trade.